What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Today I'm bringing you guys my very first impressions on the new board from Onewheel, the GT S-Series. Now, to me, it feels like just yesterday Onewheel released the GT, but it has been a little while now, and I actually did a few videos on that newer board. They increased the power, they gave us a crazy long range, and if you want to see my impressions on that board, you can check out the video right up here because I'm going to be doing a lot of comparison between the GT S-Series and that now older board today. Onewheel made a bunch of changes to this new board that may seem pretty minor, but once you add them all up together collectively, it makes an insane package. This is my very first time stepping on the board today, so I'm going to be doing a range test as we ride around and I give you guys my thoughts. We'll talk about the specs, and I'm going to give you guys my first impressions of the first Onewheel that was truly built for performance. Now, first and foremost, this board is really geared to the hardcore enthusiast rider. It's faster, lighter, and lower to the ground than ever before. The biggest change is definitely going to be this powertrain. If you were used to riding the XR, the Pint, or the Pint X in the past, that was running on a 63 volt system. Then Onewheel released the GT, which at the time felt like a crazy upgrade. A lot more power, a lot more torque for bumping over curbs, and just having more stability when riding off-road. And the GT comes with a 75 volt powertrain. Now the GT S-Series makes a huge bump up. We started with 63 and went to 75. Now we're going from 75 volts all the way up to 113 volts. Onewheel really worked their magic with this new power system, and so far it feels incredible. With this upgraded system, I can already notice a lot more torque, power, and control while I'm at speed. Like I mentioned, this board is lighter than the GT2, 2 pounds to be exact. And they're giving us 50% more voltage in a package weighing only 33 pounds. This board is lower to the ground than the GT as well. The GT, to me, never really felt top heavy, but I think this is going to be the best way to describe it. The slimmer S-Series low boy foot pads is what Onewheel is calling it. You have a redefined concave in the foot pads with rounded edges and a 24mm kickback in the rear. When it comes to charging this board, we're looking at a recharge time of about 150 minutes, or if you have a hypercharger, that knocks it down to just 80 minutes. And the recharge times on the Onewheel have never really been an issue to me, so it's nice to see that that's kind of right on par with all the other boards. Now, the main thing I want to stress on is the power system. More voltage means more power, and more power means more stability at higher speeds. Now, with a trained rider, that actually means that the board might be safer to ride because it's giving you more torque to pop you up over obstacles while moving and more power to stop at the same time. The hill climbing capabilities on this board is probably going to be insane, and they also added a few more touches like the GT Performance treaded tire. This tire comes with a softer compound, a wider profile, and passive stability. I think right now the tire is set a little bit too firm from the factory, but that's just kind of standard. So I might let a little bit of air out to increase traction and stability. Just like all of the other boards, you can accessorize these things through and through. Right now I'm running one of the newest fenders, which is actually removable. I tend to ride all of my boards with the fender on there to keep the foot pads clean, my shoes and pants clean, but I really love the look of a Onewheel without a fender on there. So now, instead of screwing one into place and removing it, I can do it with just a simple snap of a button. One of the things that I don't want to stress on too much, but I definitely have to mention, are the safety features on this board. If you've done any research into Onewheels, or if you are already a current rider, then I'm preaching to the choir here, but this board is equipped with pushback, of course. If you're new to Onewheels, what is pushback? Essentially, when you're riding the board past its capabilities of the power output, if you're riding the board to a point where it can no longer keep you balanced, the nose of the board will actually lift up, pushing you backward, and that is the board telling you, hey, it's time to slow down. This can happen under low voltage, if you're going too fast, if you're going up a hill that's a little bit too steep. There are a few different scenarios where you will experience pushback, and if you don't listen to it, you can get hurt. Now, that being said, there is a new feature on not only this board, but if you update any of the older boards, there's a feature that Onewheel is calling haptic buzz. And right now I'm riding in the lowest mode on the Onewheel GT S. Right now it's limiting me to just 12 miles an hour. So I'm gonna show you guys what pushback looks like and now sounds and feels like at the same time. So I'm probably doing about 8 miles an hour here, going down a little bit of a hill. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear this. Did you pick that up? Let's do it one more time. So now when I'm reaching the limits of the current ride mode that I'm in, which happens to be 12 miles an hour, the board is not only pushing the nose up saying, hey, we're not gonna allow you to go any faster, but the foot pads are actually vibrating, which is a really cool touch. I can feel it in my feet up into my legs, and that vibration of my feet also kind of makes that buzzing noise. They're doing it with this motor, and it's pretty cool that they're able to kind of update and tweak the current models out there to give everyone this feature. So I've been tracking my ride in the Onewheel app, and I've already gone 4 miles in the lowest mode right now, which is bay mode, and it's killing me. I'm getting pushed back, I'm feeling the haptic buzz and everything. I want to see what this board is actually made of. So let's bump this up to the next one. We have Roam activated. Fun, cruisy, and forgiving. Roam is the golden hour of shapings. Soak in the fresh air and just cruise. We're looking at a max speed of 18 miles per hour now. Now, originally going into my first impressions of this board, I was going to say that this board is not for the entry-level rider. It's the most expensive, the most powerful board out there. However, with the different custom shaping options that you have, riding around in that bay mode there would be easy for basically anyone. Now, I wouldn't recommend going all out and just getting the most expensive and powerful board if you've never ridden one before. The GT is still a killer board. That's kind of like my cruise around town board. Whereas I can already tell that the GTS is going to be kind of my like shreddy fun, doing tricks, riding trails, hopping over obstacles. I'm gonna ride this board a little bit more aggressively than I would the GT. And then you still have the Pint X as well, which travels with me in my van everywhere I go. So you have a few different options to pick from. And while the GTS is definitely geared more towards the hardcore audience, I think if it's your first time stepping on the Onewheel and you have all of those safety features engaged, this could be your first board if you're in the market for one. Now let's see what top speed feels like in the second mode here. Right there, we got pushback, got the haptic buzz, and that's taking me up to 18 miles per hour in the current mode. 18 miles per hour for me is kind of my threshold of just like cruising around and feeling safe while I'm riding. On my GT, I would push it to 20 here and there, but for a comfortable, safe feeling ride, 18 miles an hour is my personal comfort limit based off of my experience with riding Onewheels. Occasionally we'll go a little bit faster, and with this board, you can actually go faster than ever before. The two most common questions when someone sees you riding a Onewheel and they've never seen one before: how fast does it go, and how far can you go? The GTS now has a top speed of 25 miles per hour depending on which mode you're riding in. And with the different battery setup and the management system, we're getting a range of 16 to 25 miles. Or at least that's what Onewheel says, and Onewheel, for the most part, they're pretty spot on with all of their specs. Now, I, of course, have never gone 25 miles per hour on a Onewheel. So let's bump it up into the next mode, see where we're at. Currently at 5.7 miles on this ride. Let's go up into flow mode. This is one that I'm probably gonna like the most. We're looking at full speed flow, loose and buttery. It combines high levels of carvability, smooth power, and high speeds. This is going to unlock that top speed, and already I think I can tell that this is going to be my favorite mode. Kind of feels like snowboarding on a powder day, just really loose and flowy, and I can do 25 miles an hour now, which I'm not afraid to say is too fast for me, but we'll see if we can push the limits a little bit here. This power is crazy. I can easily tell that I'm going over 20 miles an hour because I have a pretty good feeling of what the XR, the GT, the Pint, and the Pint X can do in the past. The craziest feeling though is that I'm not getting pushback. I'm not even pushing to the point of 25 miles an hour, so I'm not getting haptic buzz. The board doesn't feel unstable at all. It's just constantly giving me power, keeping me balanced and the board balanced while I'm going what to me feels like pretty insane speeds. I mean, let's be honest, it is kind of insane. It is such a weird feeling. If you're used to the normal top speed of a GT, your body is kind of waiting to feel that pushback, and with this, it's just faster and you don't feel it. It's a really trippy feeling, and this is only going to really relate to people who have ridden Onewheels and know the feeling very well. But I will say, I think I could get used to this. Now let's take a pause and check out the next mode. We have Highline, which I know is definitely a crowd favorite. This is going to be responsive and punchy. It's the ultimate experience for maximum sendability. This will probably be the shaping mode for riding on dirt. I can already tell this one feels a lot more punchy, more responsive. I think it's delivering the torque and the power a little bit quicker. This mode will really come in handy when you're trying to navigate up some hills over loose terrain. Maybe you have to pop over rocks. With an older, lower voltage board like the XR, you would kind of have to finesse it to get up some steep inclines while hopping over rocks. The GT solved a lot of that, giving us a little bit more power and more voltage. It made climbs and popping over obstacles a lot easier. With this GT S-Series now, you really won't even have to think about it. You just kind of point the board where you want it to go, and it's gonna go. It's gonna deliver that power with a big punch, but also it's pretty smooth at the same time. Now let's change this once again up to elevated mode. I'm gonna skip over this because it's not super hilly around this area, but essentially it's gonna keep the nose lifted. Let's go right into Apex, which sounds insane. This is going to be the highest mode until we get into custom shaping. Raw, aggressive, hyper responsive. Apex rides with intensity and eats single track for breakfast. Maybe we can find some single track-ish stuff around here. Now I can already tell that the board feels most compliant in this mode. It will do exactly what I ask of it, and it does it basically without any fighting back. I don't have to finesse it, it's just delivering a ton of power, a ton of torque. And while I'm off-road, I now realize that I definitely want to let a little bit of air out of this tire. Tire pressure is really just kind of a personal preference, but when you're off-road, like right now, I'm just kind of riding through some grass. Having a little bit of air let out of the tire is going to, one, increase traction, but also it's going to make the ride a little bit smoother at the same time, just like airing down in a truck or a van. Let's head down here. Not the easiest thing with a camera in my hand. This Apex mode is really going to be for the trail riders. Guys who are competing in one-wheel competitions, racing for the rail and things like that. Now, I would not say I'm a hardcore shredder on a one wheel. I love riding them. I put hundreds of miles on all my different one wheels every year. But I can definitely see how those really hardcore enthusiast riders who are racing, off-road, doing tricks, ripping berms, up and down hills, they're gonna love this Apex mode. The voltage just lets you kind of pop over all these little bumps and undulations in the trail. You really want to be careful when riding like this because, of course, you can do 25 miles an hour. This board is going to do exactly what you input it to do. And I can't wait to rip this thing on some trails like this when, of course, I don't have my camera in my hand. Alright guys, back from my very first ride on the Onewheel GT S-Series, and all I can say is I'm super impressed. I wasn't really sure how much more performance you could get out of a board like this, but Onewheel did it, and this thing is a blast to ride. Now, I rode this board all the way down to 3% battery life until I got pushback and I felt that haptic buzz, so the nose came up a little bit, the board turned off, and luckily I was all the way back at my destination. I'm gonna pull up the app here to check out some of the specs. I did a total distance of 20.6 miles and that was a total of 1 hour and 42 minutes of actual riding. Up and downhill about 600 feet in elevation gain and loss, and my average speed was about 12.1 miles an hour. And I believe that's based off of my time stopped as well. I hit a max speed of 23.5 miles per hour. So I never pushed this board to the point in one of those higher end modes where I was actually getting pushback or the buzz all the way up at 25 miles an hour. But you can see here on the chart that I actually hit that top speed while going up a hill a little bit. You can also see the battery percentage here. I started in one of those lower modes, so I wasn't going very fast and I wasn't using a ton of the power until I ramped up all the way into Apex mode, and that's when the battery life started draining a little bit faster because of course I'm using a lot more power. Now I thought originally I was really gonna like the flow mode the most, however I actually preferred the Highline mode after a while. I rode it in flow and it was super nice and buttery. Carving around on pavement felt great, but I actually prefer a little bit more of that responsiveness that I got out of the Highline mode. So in the future, once I jump into the custom shaping and everything, I'm probably gonna mess around with both of those modes and try to find like my personal happy medium. Now the biggest thing to hit on with this board is definitely going to be the performance. For people who are skilled at riding Onewheels and you've put miles and miles on, you're really comfortable with how the board feels, all of the signs that it tells you. If you are riding a little bit too hard, you understand the signs of the pushback and the haptic buzz and all of that. This board with more power and torque is actually going to give you a little bit more headroom just to push it a little bit further. I mentioned that my normal cruising speed is probably around 18 miles an hour because anything over that, once you get up to 20 on something like the GT, that's when you get the pushback, you get the feeling, and it's like, okay, it's time to slow down or the board won't be able to balance me anymore. I found myself cruising on this thing at around 20 to 22 miles an hour very comfortably because I know if I push any further than that, that's when I'm going to feel all of those signs. The board's not going to be able to keep me balanced. So I didn't think I would actually like to ride a Onewheel any faster than I was previously comfortable with, but with the added torque, the added power, and of course my experience with riding these things quite a lot, I was actually pretty comfortable riding this thing up to 20 to 22 miles per hour. I did also notice that torque increase when going up really long hills, even short steep hills. Typically if you approach a short steep hill with a lot of kind of off camber bumps and things like that, the lower voltage boards are going to need a lot more finessing to kind of keep yourself balanced and to make sure that you have enough power to hop over some of those obstacles. But I climbed a short hill with a lot of rocks on it and I did it very slowly, and this thing, it did beep a little bit, but it was able to give me enough power to kind of bump over some of those obstacles, and that was an experience that you probably won't be able to get on something like a GT, an XR, a Pint, or a Pint X. So if you're in the market for a Onewheel and you want the biggest, baddest, best of the best, the GT S-Series is definitely going to be the way to go, although it is one of the most expensive boards out there now. A lot of times people will see the price of something like this and that is the only thing that they will ever comment on. And it's understandable. Something like this is definitely not for everyone, but I know these products are bomb-proof. I kick mine around, they take tumbles and roll onto concrete, on rocks and dirt and grass, and they last a very, very long time. So although this board is pretty pricey at $3,200, if you are a seasoned rider looking for the absolute best of best when it comes to performance, I don't think you need to look any further than the new GTS. So that's all that I got. Drop your questions down below, and if you are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every single week. As always, thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.